I'm not ready to be a father.
Please don't go. We made vows. That is how my husband left me and my unborn child with nothing.
The ultrasound photo slipped from Maya's trembling fingers and drifted to the floor like a fallen leaf. Through the blur of tears, she watched Marcus pack his designer suitcase with the same methodical precision he'd once used to plan their wedding. 12 weeks pregnant, and her world was collapsing around her like a house of cards in a storm. "I'm not ready for this," he said, not even looking at her. "I never wanted kids. Not now. Maybe not ever. But we're married," Maya whispered, her voice breaking on the last word. "We made vows." He laughed, actually laughed, a sound so cold it made her shiver despite the summer heat. "Yeah, well, vows don't pay for diapers and college funds. I have a career to think about. A life." He zipped the suitcase with finality. "You'll figure it out. You always do." The door closed with a soft click that echoed like thunder through the empty apartment. Maya stood frozen in the center of the living room, one hand instinctively moving to her still flat stomach. The silence was deafening. After 3 years of marriage, of building a life together, of believing in forever, she was alone, completely alone. She lowered herself onto the couch, her legs unable to support her weight any longer, and let the tears come. Great, heaving sobs that shook her entire body. How had it come to this? When had the man she loved become a stranger? The humiliation came in waves after that, relentless and suffocating. At the grocery store 2 days later, she ran into Marcus's mother. The older woman's eyes traveled down to Maya's stomach with undisguised disgust. "You trapped my son," she hissed, loud enough for other shoppers to hear. "Gold digger, you probably got pregnant on purpose, didn't you? To tie him down." Maya's face burned with shame as curious eyes turned toward them. She abandoned her half-filled cart and fled, tears streaming down her face as she sat in her car, gasping for breath. At work, the whispers followed her down hallways like ghosts. "Can't even keep a man. Probably drove him away with all that nagging. Who gets pregnant and loses their husband?" Her co-workers, people she'd considered friends, now looked at her with a mixture of pity and judgment. During lunch breaks, conversations would stop when she entered the room. She ate alone, scrolling through her phone, pretending not to notice. The worst came when her landlord appeared at her door with an eviction notice. "Marcus was the one on the lease with good credit," he said, not meeting her eyes. "I need someone more stable, someone who can actually pay rent on time." Maya tried to explain that she had a job, that she'd never been late with payment, but he was already shaking his head. "You've got 30 days. I'm sorry, but I can't take the risk." 30 days. Maya sat in the empty apartment that night, boxes half packed around her, one hand on her swollen belly. Where would she go? Her family had disowned her when she'd eloped with Marcus against their wishes. She'd burned those bridges, thinking she was choosing love. Now she had nowhere to turn. The weight of it all pressed down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. She was 4 months pregnant, jobless, after being let go for restructuring, that everyone knew was really about her situation, and about to be homeless. The women's shelter in the next county had a waiting list, but they found her a bed in their overflow section, a converted storage room with 3 other women. Maya lay on the thin mattress that first night, listening to the sounds of strangers sleeping around her, and wondered how her life had become unrecognizable. She'd graduated with honors, had worked in marketing for a respected firm, had a beautiful apartment, and a husband she'd loved with her whole heart. Now she had nothing but the clothes in her trash bag and the baby growing inside her. The other women at the shelter shared their stories during the long, empty days. domestic violence survivors, women fleeing addiction, mothers who'd lost everything to circumstance and bad luck. Maya listened and realized she wasn't special. Her pain wasn't unique. There were millions of women just like her, invisible to a world that preferred not to see. A young woman named Lisa, barely 20, asked her one evening, "What's your baby's name going to be?" Maya looked down at her belly, now round and obvious at 6 months. "Grace," she said softly, "because that's what we both need right now. Grace to survive this. Grace to start over. Grace to forgive myself for all the mistakes that led here." The months crawled by in a haze of exhaustion and determination. Maya found work at a diner, washing dishes and bussing tables for cash under the table. The manager, an older woman named Rosa, didn't ask questions when Maya showed up with no references and a growing belly. "We all need help sometimes," Rosa said simply, handing her an apron. Maya worked until her 8th month, her feet swelling, her back aching, saving every penny in an envelope hidden in her pillowcase. The shelter provided free prenatal classes, and she attended religiously, learning about labor, about breathing techniques, about how to care for a newborn when you have nothing. Grace was born on a Tuesday morning in the charity ward of County General. Tiny, perfect, with a cry that sounded like a battle hymn. The nurse, a kind woman with greying hair, placed the baby in Maya's arms and said, "She's strong, like her mother." Maya looked down at her daughter's scrunched-up face, at the tiny fingers that gripped her thumb with surprising force, and made a promise. "We're going to be okay. Better than okay, I'm going to give you everything I didn't have, everything they said we couldn't have." 3 weeks later, Maya sat in her corner of the shelter's common room, Grace sleeping in her arms, when the mail volunteer brought her a yellowed envelope. "This was forwarded from your old address," the volunteer said. "Looks official." Maya almost threw it away. It looked like junk mail, the kind of scam that promises you've won $1 million if you just send your bank information. But something made her tear it open with one hand while balancing Grace with the other. "Dear Miss Maya Fernandez, we regret to inform you of the passing of your maternal grandmother, Elena Fernandez. As per her will and testament, you are named as the sole beneficiary of her estate." Maya's hand shook so hard she nearly dropped the letter. Her grandmother, the one her mother never spoke about, the one she'd been told had died when Maya was a child. She kept reading, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The estate included a brownstone in the historic district, a property that had been in their family for 3 generations, fully paid off. There was also a trust fund established decades ago by Maya's great-grandfather, a fund that had been carefully managed and had grown substantially over the years. But it was the second letter, tucked inside the legal documents, written in shaky handwriting, that made Maya's vision blur with tears. "My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I pray you'll forgive my absence from your life. Your mother and I had our differences. Pride is a terrible inheritance, and I gave her too much of it. When she cut me out of her life, she cut you out too, and that has been my greatest regret. But I watched you from afar, child, through investigators, through distant cousins. I kept track of you. I saw your kindness, your strength, your beautiful spirit. I knew one day you might need this, not as a crutch, but as wings. Fly, my darling. Fly for both of us. And if you have children, tell them about me. Tell them that their great-grandmother loved them before they were born. All my love forever. Abuela Elena." Maya sobbed so hard that Rosa came running from the kitchen, thinking something was wrong with the baby. But when Maya showed her the letter, Rosa's eyes filled with tears too. "Mija," she whispered, "God hasn't forgotten you." The lawyer's office was intimidating, all dark wood and leather chairs, but the attorney, Mr. Chen, was surprisingly gentle. He explained that the trust fund contained over $2 million, carefully invested over 60 years. The brownstone was valued at another 3 million. Your grandmother was a remarkable woman, he said. She made very specific stipulations in her will. She wanted you to be secure, to never have to depend on anyone who would hurt you. Those words hit Maya like a physical blow. Somehow, even from a distance, even after death, her grandmother had known, had understood. The first thing Maya did was secure stable housing. Not the brownstone, not yet. That felt too overwhelming. Instead, she rented a small apartment near the shelter, a place with 2 bedrooms and lots of natural light. She furnished it simply but comfortably, each piece chosen with care. This was her space, her sanctuary. No one could take it from her. The second thing she did was go back to school online, using the trust fund to pay for courses in non-profit management and social work. She'd learned so much at the shelter, had seen the desperate need for more resources, more spaces like it. If she had the means, why not use them? Grace was 6 months old when Maya started volunteering at the shelter, helping with intake, with donations, with whatever was needed. Rosa had retired from the diner and came to volunteer too. "You're going to do something special," Rosa told her one afternoon as they sorted donated clothes. "I can feel it." By the time Grace turned 1, Maya had a plan. She would renovate the brownstone, the family home that had sat empty for so long, and turn the ground floor into a non-profit, a safe space for pregnant women in crisis, for mothers who needed help, for women who were where Maya had been just 2 years ago. She would call it Grace's Haven, after the daughter who had given her purpose, after the Grace that had saved them both. The renovations took 6 months. Maya hired contractors who'd themselves been helped by community programs, creating jobs while creating hope. She worked with architects to make the space welcoming but practical. Private rooms for residents, a communal kitchen, a nursery for babies and toddlers, a small library, a counseling office. The upper floors she kept as her home, where she and Grace could live in the space her grandmother had loved. The day Grace's Haven opened its doors, 15 women were on the waiting list. Maya interviewed each one personally, saw herself in their faces, in their eyes. She hired counselors and social workers, brought in volunteer lawyers and doctors, created partnerships with job training programs. This wasn't just a shelter, it was a launching pad. Every woman who walked through those doors would leave stronger, more prepared, more hopeful. 2 years after Grace's Haven opened, Maya stood in the sunlit living room of the brownstone, watching Grace, now 3 years old, play with the children of the women staying at the Haven. Her daughter was happy, secure, surrounded by love. The house that had once stood empty was now filled with life, with laughter, with the sound of women supporting each other, lifting each other up. The doorbell rang, pulling Maya from her thoughts. A reporter from the local news station stood on the steps. "Miss Fernandez, I'm here about your nomination for the Community Hero Award. Do you have time for an interview?" Maya smiled, inviting her in. As she gave the interview, explaining how she'd transformed her pain into purpose, how her grandmother's gift had become a gift for so many others, Maya caught her reflection in the hallway mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Gone was the broken, terrified girl who'd sobbed in a storage room at the shelter. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, with eyes that had seen the bottom and climbed back up. Her phone buzzed during the interview. A text from an unknown number made her pause. "This is Marcus. I heard about what you're doing. I'd like to meet Grace and talk. Maybe we could work something out." Maya stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. She had nothing to say to him. Not through text, not through lawyers, not at all. Grace toddled over, arms up, demanding to be held. Maya scooped her up, breathing in that sweet baby smell, feeling the weight of her daughter in her arms. The weight that had once felt like too much now felt like everything. "Mama," Grace said, one of her growing vocabulary of words. "Yes, baby girl. Mama's here." Mama's always here. Through the window, Maya could see the sign she'd hung above the Haven's entrance, words her grandmother had included in her letter. "When the rain stops, dance in the puddles. That's how you learn to fly." That evening, after the reporter left, after the residents of the Haven had dinner together at the long communal table, after Grace was tucked into bed with her favourite stuffed bear, Maya sat in her grandmother's old rocking chair. The Community Hero Awards ceremony was in 6 weeks. The Haven was thriving, with a waiting list that broke her heart because it meant so many women still needed help. She'd been approached about opening a second location, about franchising the model to other cities, but tonight she just sat in the quiet, rocking slowly, thinking about the journey that had brought her here. From that moment when Marcus walked out, when she thought her life was over, to this moment, surrounded by purpose and love and grace, her phone lit up with a message from Rosa. "Proud of you, Mija." Elena would be proud too. Maya smiled, wiping away tears. The darkness had been real, the pain had been real, but so was her strength. And that strength had built something beautiful, something lasting, something that would help countless women find their own wings. Grace stirred in her room, making small sleeping sounds. Maya rose from the chair and went to check on her daughter, standing in the doorway, watching her sleep. "Thank you," she whispered, though she wasn't sure who she was thanking. Her grandmother, God, the universe, Grace herself. "Thank you for giving me a reason to survive. Thank you for showing me I was stronger than I knew." 6 months later, the Community Hero Award sat on Maya's mantle beside a framed photo of Abuela Elena, a woman Maya had never met, but who had saved them both. Grace's Haven had expanded, adding a job training program, a childcare cooperative, and a microloan initiative to help women start their own businesses. Maya had been interviewed by national media, and women from across the country were reaching out, wanting to replicate the model in their own cities. It was a Thursday afternoon when Marcus showed up unannounced. Maya was in the Haven's kitchen, preparing tea for a new resident who'd arrived that morning, when she heard his voice in the reception area. Her blood ran cold. "I need to see Maya Fernandez. I'm her husband. Well, ex-husband. Please, I just need 5 minutes." Maya's hands trembled as she set down the kettle. She could hear Rosa, who now worked full-time at the Haven, speaking firmly. "Sir, you need to leave. You can't just show up here." But Marcus's voice grew louder, more insistent. Maya, please! I know you're here. Just give me a chance to explain." Something shifted inside Maya. She walked to the reception area, her spine straight, her head held high. Marcus looked different, smaller somehow, though he'd actually gained weight. His expensive suit couldn't hide the desperate look in his eyes. When he saw her, his face crumpled. "Maya, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for months." "I know," Maya said, her voice ice cold. "I deleted every message." Marcus took a step toward her, and immediately Rosa and 2 other staff members moved to block him. He raised his hands in surrender. "Please, I just want to talk. I made a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. When I heard about what you've done, about Grace, about all of this," he gestured around the beautiful space, "I realized what I threw away." Maya laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "What you threw away? You mean your wife and daughter, or do you mean the money? Because I'm betting you heard about the inheritance before you heard about Grace's Haven." Marcus's face flushed. "That's not fair." "Yes, I heard about the money, but that's not why I'm here. I want to be a father. I want to make this right. We could be a family again." "A family?" Maya's voice rose. Years of suppressed rage finally finding its voice. You don't know the meaning of that word. You left me homeless, pregnant and homeless. Do you know where I gave birth to your daughter? In a charity ward, alone, because I had no one. Do you know where we slept for the first 6 months of her life? In a shelter storage room with 3 other women. Marcus's eyes welled with tears. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was scared and stupid and selfish. But people change, Maya. I've changed. I've been in therapy. I've learned about my mistakes. Please, just give me a chance. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. I bought a new ring. We could start over. I could be the husband you deserved, the father Grace deserves. Maya stared at the box, then at Marcus's face, and something inside her snapped. She walked past him into the kitchen, her movements deliberate. Marcus followed, hopeful, not understanding. Maya? The kettle on the stove was still hot, steam rising from the spout. Maya grabbed it, her hand wrapped in a dish towel, and turned to face him. You want to talk about deserving? Her voice was shaking with rage. You want to talk about second chances? Let me tell you what I deserved. I deserved a partner who stood by me. I deserved support when I was terrified and pregnant. I deserved basic human decency. Marcus backed up, suddenly sensing danger. Maya, what are you? I cried every single night for months, she shouted. I begged on the street for spare change to buy diapers. I worked until my feet bled while carrying your child because I had no choice. And now that I've built something, now that I have money, now you want to be a father? Now you want to be a husband? Please, I'm trying to apologize. Your apology means nothing, Maya screamed, and before she could think, before anyone could stop her, she hurled the contents of the kettle at him. The hot water splashed across Marcus's chest and shoulder, and he screamed, stumbling backward, clutching at his shirt. You crazy bitch! You burned me! Rosa and the other staff rushed in, phones already out to call security. But Maya wasn't done. She advanced on Marcus, her eyes blazing. Get out! Get out of my house. Get out of my haven. Get out of my life. You had your chance to be a man, and you chose to be a coward. That ring, that apology, it's 3 years too late and worth nothing. Marcus was crying now. From pain and shock, his shirt soaked through. Security guards arrived, summoned by Rosa's call, and grabbed him by the arms. You'll regret this, he shouted as they dragged him toward the door. I'll sue you! I'll take you for everything! Maya followed them to the entrance, her voice ringing through the haven. Sue me then. But you'll never get near my daughter. You'll never get a penny from me. And you'll never, ever get my forgiveness. You don't deserve it. As they pushed him out onto the street, Maya slammed the door behind them, her whole body shaking. The residents of the haven, who'd gathered during the commotion, stared at her in shocked silence. Then, slowly, one woman started clapping. Then, another. Then, another. Within moments, the entire room erupted in applause. That's right, Miss Maya, one woman shouted. You tell him. Rosa wrapped her arms around Maya, who finally collapsed into sobs. I know, Mija, I know. He deserved it. They all deserve it. Every man who thinks he can walk back in after destroying us. The police came an hour later, called by Marcus from the emergency room where he'd gone to treat his burns. Maya stood in her living room, Grace playing at her feet, and calmly explained what had happened to the officers. He showed up, unannounced, at a women's shelter, demanding access to me and my daughter. He was asked to leave and refused. When he cornered me in the kitchen, I defended myself. Rosa and 3 other witnesses corroborated her story. The security footage showed Marcus advancing on Maya in the kitchen, despite being told to leave. The officers looked at each other, then at Maya, then at Marcus's statement. "Miss Fernandez," one officer said slowly, "technically, you did assault him. But, given the circumstances, the location, and the fact that he was trespassing in a women's shelter after being asked to leave," he closed his notepad. "We're going to classify this as self-defense in a domestic situation. Mr. Chen will be advised not to contact you again." After they left, Maya sat in her grandmother's rocking chair, Grace in her lap, still trembling from the adrenaline. She'd lost control. She'd done something she never thought herself capable of, and she didn't regret it. Not one bit. On the days when the work was hard, when old wounds ached, when a resident's story hit too close to home, Maya would touch Elena's photo and remember. Remember the girl who'd cried on a thin mattress in a shelter. Remember the mother who'd promised her newborn daughter a better life. Remember the woman who'd chosen to transform her pain into purpose. The rain had stopped, and Maya had learned to fly. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories.